Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Jim Rohn, one of the greatest teachers of success and progress and really making it in life. Thank you so much. Welcome to each one of you. We'll start exactly at 5:05, which is the time right now. And I know quite a lot of people will still be joining us. We, as always, request you to please mute yourself when you are coming through so that you don't have to have that interference. And thank you so much for joining in. My name is Kukuletu Kaba. It's the 2nd of February, 2025. Time is really flying, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the 2nd month of the new year, and I understand other people are still saying compliments. Happy New Year. I don't even know when that ends because it would seem like people all the time, for as long as they haven't seen you in the new year, they will still go and say Happy New Year. Yesterday we had a fantastic session, which was an inaugural Zoom session for Eswatini for Amandla Omnotho. It was beautiful that at least twice a month, we are going to have the sessions similar to this for our chapters in the continent, starting with Eswatini and in Zimbabwe, and our Nigeria is coming as well pretty soon. I was in discussion with our Nigerian friends who are inviting us over there. This is all at the back of working together as Africans, forging strategic alliances, business linkages, making sure that we trade with each other as African people, and really fostering those areas that needs to be fostered, especially in the space of economy, and exporting and importing, and making it exciting to be an African and to be in Africa, to do business with each other. So thank you so much for joining. This is the platform for Amandla Omnotho, where we seek to empower you, where we seek to engage you, where we seek to find ways of strategically aligning with certain structures and looking at different sectors of economy and working to really drive our own economic destinies and emancipating ourselves as African people in this beautiful continent. So today is that day as well, where we are going to have somebody very special who's going to be addressing us on something crucial, which has to do with one of the key multilateral structures globally, which is truly has made seismic effects and changes on the global scale in terms of geopolitics, but more so in the area of economics. It's been very interesting. I always say and reflect on what recent events, in this instance with the American, event of the Honorable and His Excellency Donald Trump coming into office. And I was watching an almost over 10 minutes or so, YouTube session of the Canadian Prime Minister talking about what effect that 25% tariff that the US is levying on the goods coming from Canada, their neighbor, it's going to do to their economy and what's going to happen and how unhappy they are. He was trying to, number one, plead with America to say, hey, America, please understand, we've come far together. We've come too far and you are neighbors and we really want to work with you. But right in the end of his speech, he started retaliating with the tit-for-tat tariff increase and says, we're giving you back 25% like you've just done to us as of the next 24 hours or 36 hours. We're stopping this, we're stopping this just at the time that you're doing it to us. And it's quite interesting. We're living in such times where you can see tit for tat. There's global economic wars. There's shifts that's around. And Canada, by the way, is the second largest country in the world. And there's Russia, there's Canada, and all sorts of other countries in America, I think third or thereabouts. So you see that there's so much changes that's happening in the world right now. It's happening during our time, in our generation. And what effect this has on us, definitely, it's got mammoth effect because, as they say, when America sneezes, everybody catches the cough. But fact of the matter is there are serious changes being brought about by the BRICS Plus group of countries, this institution, which really has been making waves to change the face of the earth in terms of moving from unipolarity to not just bipolarity, which used to be the issue, but to multipolarity, where each country and as a sovereign country stand on its own and say, yes, we assert ourselves, we want to do business the way we want to do business, and out of respect and respectability, mutually beneficial relationships, and really not just becoming a minor, as much as we may be called the least economic developing countries, or we may be called the emerging economies, but we want to do business the way that is going to be fair and really equitable between you and us, any Western European and other economies or Eastern economies. Africa is rising as well to say exactly that. We see the changes happening at the front, in the front of, what is called Francophone countries. And we can see that Africa is truly rising in front of our eyes. There's so much that's happening, which for me, I think is very exciting. And I hope that it is equally exciting for you. And for it to be even more exciting, we need to participate in its excitement so that we are together as we sort of like ride this crest and move to experience the dividends and the benefits of being part of this era. So this was just my opening remarks. I don't want to dwell much on what I have to say, because somebody important is here with us who's going to say more. Right at the end, we are going to be announcing what's going to be happening with our programs, especially the Turmeric, as Mr. Magumbi himself has joined us, and Dr. Marange have joined us, and quite a lot of people have joined us here from other countries. And I'm very excited, in Eswatini and our friends from Ethiopia and many others that are still going to join. And luckily, we are recording this session so that those who miss it, we can always post it onto our Amandla Omnotho TV on YouTube. So today, without any further waste of time, I want to introduce the lady of the moment. And this is somebody who's going to be speaking to us, speaking about what I think is a very important structure of our times. Makeba is going to just go and speak. I know she can really speak. She's gifted in being able to articulate things and help people understand what this BRICS is all about. And moreover, what this upcoming sort of like a conference or summit is about. And she is the chairperson of BRICS Plus WBA, Women Business Association. And she is the deputy chairperson of the India-South Africa Chamber of Commerce. She's obviously a director in many, many companies, and I would really want even dare go into each of those companies, but I'm going to give her free hand to just introduce herself the way she knows and wants, so that maybe her message would be clear in terms of what she is about on this platform this afternoon. But today she's going to be talking, Umakeba, particularly on the BRICS Agri Investment and Trade Summit, which is happening on the 27th to the 29th of March this year, 2025, in Durban at Inkosi Albert Luthuli International Convention Center, what is known as ICC. We're excited about this, but want to hear from her in terms of the entire scope and the vision that she is driving, even within BRICS. And she's going to sort of like explain it to us in granular form, detail, how this whole conference is going to go about, and who's going to be speaking, and all those things. And I must say, as I'm welcoming her to speak, I always emphasize the importance of us understanding these structures, intra-Africa trade, BRICS itself, the G20 that we are hosting as we have assumed presidency through our president Ramaphosa this year. And these things must not be high up there, just up there, and we don't understand how do we really benefit from them. How do we become intimately involved? And these things must sort of like interpret themselves on the ground with us as that's it. Stuli Skandava, I'm going to open this opportunity to you to give us your presentation. Literally, I've got 30 minutes to take us through. At about quarter to there, we would like to stop and have everybody who wants to ask you questions, engage you, really take up that opportunity. If you want to do the presentation, please kindly let me know. I'm going to give you the hosting rights to do so. Lebogang Zulu, Madam Zulu, over to you.
Thank you, Nonkosi. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the members of Amandla Omnotho. It just feels a bit awkward, with this whole technology thing, and you're speaking to a screen that's filled with names, but you're not seeing people. So if I may kindly just ask you to stay video on, so it just feels a bit more human, that I am not talking to people who are connected and may not necessarily be listening. And any member really that wishes, to unmute their videos, I'd really appreciate. It makes it that much more engaging. Colleagues, we are, and Nonkosi said it quite nicely, we are living in very interesting times, times when we can be bystanders of what is happening, or we can actually take a lead role. In his introduction, Nonkosi spoke about the world, the shift in the global power architecture, us moving from a unipolar world, to a multipolar world. But then it becomes important for us to understand what does it actually mean? So before I even go and talk about the summit itself, it becomes important that, we all align insofar as what does it mean for our country or our continent or each of our countries to be part of multilateral structures? Is it really about that one event that happens? We saw in South Africa 2023, we had presidency of BRICS, and the summit itself was in August of 2023. Does it mean that the whole year when we have presidency, it is only about that specific day or that specific week? And if so, are we getting excited? So I'd like to start there, to help all of us understand how we fit in as business people into these multilateral structures, and what our country and our countries, because I understand there's more than South Africa on this platform, so I'll speak to a broader continent. What does it mean for each of our countries to be part of these many multilateral structures? So South Africa goes and says in 2010, we want to be part of the BRICS as a multilateral structure. At the time, of course, it was only called BRIC. And when South Africa joined, we said now it's called BRICS, as everybody knows. And of course, there's more countries that have joined. We're now 19 in total, 10 official member states, and the 9 are BRICS partners. But what does it mean for South Africa? And how do you come in? How do we come in? How do I come in as a micro business or a small business or a medium-sized business or a large corporate? It all comes back to understanding the BRICS mechanism itself. So yes, there's on social medias, we're all commenting about the geopolitical space in the world. President Trump says this, President Xi Jinping says that, President Putin says this. But really what is important is understanding the BRICS mechanism in its entirety. So South Africa is part of that multilateral structure, and at BRICS level, we are cooperating at different levels. The first 3 pillars specifically, or 3 areas of cooperation. First one is the political and security. That is way above the BRICS Women Business Alliance pay grade. That is our head data, and that is our ministers. Which basically says, look, we need to have friends in all sorts of directions that will enable us to stabilize the country politically, and have the right kind of security measures in place. That's dealt with at that level. The second pillar of cooperation is the financial and economic cooperation. That is where your likes of the BRICS Women Business Alliance, your likes of the BRICS Business Council, and of course the likes of, I'm sure in the platform there are people that fall within the youth category. Unfortunately, I'm no longer at that level. But that is, so the BRICS Youth Association, of course, will then be part of that. And the last pillar, is we cooperate at the level of kind of what's the last one? Cultural and people to people. That's mainly academia. There will be your BRICS think tank, your BRICS civil society, and a whole host of other official structures. But I want to zoom in on us as the Financial and Economic Corporation. In his opening, Nonkosi said, as a BRICS framework across these different pillars, all our countries are saying, look, a unipolar world came in a scenario where we said we are independent. We achieved independence. In South Africa, we achieved it in 1994. Other countries achieved it at different times, but the question that ought to be asked, of course, is what is sovereign independence when you do not have control over your financial affairs? Meaning that you look at South Africa, let's use South Africa as a beautiful example. We are business people, we produce different things. We either selling services or we're selling products to different markets, domestic markets and international markets. But when we speak sovereign independence, what does it mean for us and how do we plug in? So mine here, and Nonkosi, thank you for the invite. Mine today is to try and say to all of us as business people that BRICS is us. The S in BRICS is not only South Africa, it's of course Africa, but that is us as business people. And why is it us as business people? Because again, we speak sovereign independence. However, when we look at a couple of things that the country is faced with. Number one, our debt to GDP ratio itself, is sitting at just over 70%. Now, as soon as you say a country's debt to GDP ratio is at 70%, you are basically saying you're not producing enough to sell to the market and therefore need to borrow money in order to sustain yourself. Or much like your business, where you're not generating enough money or you are invoicing, but the clients are taking long to pay, you go to the bank and you increase your credit facility, or overdraft, whatever form, you are utilizing that to sustain your business and take care of your overheads and. It's the similar scenario with the country. We are now, because our debt to GDP ratio is that high, it's not really giving us sustainability. That's number one. Number two, that we've got to understand as business people, what should we be solutioning for within this BRICS mechanism is the second problem of South Africa is, if you go back to the original 5 countries of BRICS, with every BRIC country, we are sitting with negative trade balances. Simply put, all these BRICS countries are selling more to us than what we're selling to them. I'm sure, colleagues, you would agree with me that if you imagine just a South Africa-India scenario as an example, there's over 130 India businesses in South Africa. Okay, I was hearing a sound, so I wasn't sure if somebody wanted to speak. Okay, so there's over 130 India businesses in South Africa operating in the South African economy. This is a country with 60 plus million people. See those people as a market, right? But in India, there's less than 20 companies, South African companies, operating in India in a population and or market of over 1.4 billion people. Surely when you look at the math there, something is not mathing, because we've got more businesses in a very small market. We've got less businesses in a much bigger market. So the net result is these negative trade balances that we sit with between ourselves and each of the BRIC countries. But realistically, again, and I want to bring back the element of Amandla as an example, yourselves in different countries. Even if we were to turn a whole South Africa into an agriculture site, we can't even produce as a country enough population of just 1.4 billion people in India, let alone the population in China, let alone the population in Russia and all other BRIC member states. So the problem we ought to be solutioning for as a country and a continent, as business people, is precisely that. How do we club in on agro-produce as an example? So we sell more to these markets. When we sell more to these markets, the countries involved, they all benefit, because us as South Africa, being a coordinator, coordinator and then, of course, an official member state. We are coordinating it that South Africa is not produced, but it's been produced by Zambia, it's been produced by Ghana. You coordinate all that, you take it and you sell it. You sell it to these different countries. Those participating countries in Africa are benefiting from volume. So they've got sales volume. We as South Africa are benefiting because we are either moving the goods via South Africa. So there's imports, there's import taxes, there's customs, but we could also be looking at the branding element. Instead of made in Zambia, it's now made in South Africa, or not made, but made. The other one is producing, the other one made, because South Africa will be packaging in that context, and then sold to any of these markets, if not all of them. So we also equally benefit from something that we're not producing in South Africa, but is being produced in Zimbabwe or in Zambia or in Swaziland. So it's a beneficial model that we represent as BRICS Women Business Alliance within the BRICS framework of cooperation. And I'm sure we'll do Q&A a bit later. If we need to zoom in, please be free to ask the necessary questions. So the second problem that we are then solutioning for as an alliance is these negative trade balances that exist between South Africa and each of the BRIC member states. The third problem, which touches a little bit on the geopolitical side of things, is that when you have a foreign minister of South Africa, in our case, we call it, the Department of International Relations, DECO, and Cooperation. But in BRICS terms, we call it foreign ministers. So when you have a South African foreign minister sitting in a room with the foreign minister of Russia and negotiating the terms of a bilateral agreement, because for you to trade with Russia, for you to trade with any of the BRICS countries, outside being part of a multilateral structure, the next layer that governs what we do with one another, each of these countries, is bilateral agreement. So when you imagine a corporate South Africa and its composition and a corporate Russia and its composition, the negotiation between these two ministers may not necessarily be favorable because we are coming wearing different hats. And what are those hats? Corporate South Africa is less than 20% government, so more state-owned entities we sell, the more that percentages drop. The second layer is 75% of corporate South Africa is multinationals, which means these are people that are here in the country, not as native business community, but, of course, they're here to extract as much value as they possibly can. And, when there's nothing to extract, they're out. And only 5% is business, 5% of corporate South Africa is what is labeled as micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, which is largely ourselves. However, that being a South African scenario, a Russian scenario is 50 to 60% of corporate Russia is government. 30% is native business community, and only less than 10% is actually multinationals. Now imagine these two ministers then, foreign ministers, sitting and negotiating the terms of the bilateral agreement. Surely the math again will favor the Russian much more than it will favor the South African, which translates into what we see every day as negative trade balances. So the country finds itself with these different kinds of problems. You would note, I did not talk about unemployment. I didn't even want to go there, because if we, as this 5%, are not looking to penetrate these markets that are international markets, and we all want to focus on domestic markets whose 75% are controlled by multinationals, what chance do you have as a native business community? So we're not talking we don't label ourselves as micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. Label ourselves as native business communities, and that definition really for us is, thank you. Okay, it's a bit of it, so I'm trying to remember, where was I? So I'm not doing any presentation really. I don't do slides because what's the point really? We need to understand why it's important for ourselves as business people to actually get involved and be part of your BRICS WBA and take advantage. So my point is that for as long as we are all, it is comfortable, it is safe, to focus on, I produce X and I sell it to domestic markets. It's all happening in the country. However, our challenge is that these domestic economies, this domestic economy is controlled, managed, and owned by multinationals. Like many other business, if you start a business today and you're the first company, to make bicycles, as an example. The fact of the matter is, doesn't matter whether you're a multinational, whether you are Black, whether you're Indian, whether you're colored, that doesn't matter really. Bottom line is, as business people, you want to hold on to the monopoly of that market as long as you possibly can. It's business, it's just pure business dynamics. And not, it's not an emotional conversation. So again, the 75% of the multinationals that are owning corporate South Africa. So ours is to then say to you, yes. If there has been said in all corners in terms of how difficult it is to access markets in domestic shelves, it is absolutely accurate. There's no theory about it. It's practical. You produce this, you produce cups, you produce, you're a farmer, you farm apples, or, I'll even go to spaces such as beef, as an example, those that are breeding cows, that are very keen on selling to Chinese markets, as an example. The reality is you're struggling to sell into your own country, of course, because you are labeled as a small, micro, and medium-sized enterprise in a country that its sovereign independence is superficial. It's not realistic, because we are much like many other countries in the world. We do not necessarily have true sovereign independence, because our financial affairs are dependent on he or she that we borrow money from. So if we are borrowing money from the same multinationals that are controlling 75% of the economy, they've got no interest, like business people. They've got no interest in you developing as a native business community. They've got no interest in opening shelf space for you to sell your products. They'll do it minor here, minor there, just so we believe that something is going to happen one day, but it hardly ever happens. I mean, how many of us in this room right now can safely say, and I'd like in the Q&A for you to answer that question if anybody is in that position, but that any one of you that today you are running the fourth generation of your business, which means it was started 40 years ago and it's a continuation. And how many of us in this room right now are talking about, I am a first generation business, and the reality is the majority of the native business community are in the first generation business. We're starting it. And I bet you right now, your kids, if we continue to focus on domestic spaces, your kids and your grandchildren will continue to be starting and never really growing. So what we are is, if nothing changes, we continue to be nothing but glorified workers with that extra registration number and a little bit of income that keeps us busy, but it doesn't really grow the generational wealth that we also so desire. And therefore, when you start looking at platforms such as BRICS, such as the BRICS Women Business Alliance, that says, Council, you continue on big business, in increasing trading activity between South Africa and the BRIC member states and whichever other African states, you continue to focus on that as a primary focal point of yourselves as council. We, an alliance, the BRICS Women Business Alliance, particularly from a South African perspective, ours is a focus on native business community, because we want to know who you are, what you are producing, and you do your own research, because we're not employed, we're not paid by government, we're not paid by yourselves, so you do your own business plans. You understand, I'm producing X and so much of it has shelf space in South Africa, but I've got this excess capacity that I'd like to sell to international markets. And I know China or Russia or this one is looking for this demand. I've done my research, I've gone extensive. I understand that particular product China currently is buying from a non-BRIC member state. These are the prices. Internet is there, information is absolutely everywhere. We just need to dig in. So by the time you come to us and you become a member, either through a partnership between Amandla Omnotho and BRICS WPA, or yourselves directly as individual businesses, either way, we're good. But bottom line is we've got a working group that is run by One Africa Holdings, and that working group is focused primarily on trade and investment. What of yours is needing investment, and what of yours is needing market access, and what of yours is needing technology to enhance your production or to enhance what you're doing so you can help us and help the country to sell more. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the kinds of conversations that need to occupy ourselves as native business community within the BRICS framework, and expand it not just into South Africa, but go beyond South Africa. In 2023, under our presidency, when we went to the Heads of State Summit, we said to the Heads of States, outside presenting our annual report, of course, we requested endorsement for a specific initiative, and that initiative was to say, for the longest time, BRICS leaders have been saying they're very keen on enhancing economic cooperation activity between BRICS countries and African countries. However, it has only been but just a vision and theorized. So we therefore requested their endorsement in allowing us as an alliance to establish regional offices in African states that are not member entities, not only Africa, of course, because Russia has already established regional offices in Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, and two other countries. We as South Africa, since that endorsement, of course, Heads of State said, absolutely go ahead. We've since established a regional office in Lesotho, Zimbabwe, Zambia, I'm going to take advantage of my dear colleague that is on this call, Eleni, who is heading the BRICS WBA Africa desk. If I miss any country, I'm sure she'll jump in. But please just, can you highlight all of them quick for us? Oh, I don't know. Okay, there's too many voices now. I'm confused.
Madam Chair, saying Swaziland is onboarding.
Oh, so okay. So we are busy onboarding Swaziland. I think we're having a conversation with Ghana and a conversation with which other country? I think we're talking to Rwanda, are we not? Or something of that sort. But there's
and DRC, Madam Chair.
There you go. The intention is for us, again, to establish these regional offices, not for the first pillar or the second pillar, but purely for us being an official economic cooperation structure within the BRICS framework of cooperation. So it is an economic cooperation framework that governs the establishment of these regional offices. Meaning what in simple English? Meaning that, like I said, that is being produced in Ghana as an example, or in Swaziland for that matter, as an example, that is looking for additional, or better, market spaces. We as South Africa, we want to take that and go trade it because we are an official member state, and go trade it in BRICS countries. That's what we do. So in the last 4 years of our existence, we're only 4 years old, we've established extensive networks of investors and buyers and sellers of different things. So where we looked at the summit itself, if I may just jump into the summit, where we looked at the summit, we said, look, 2023, South Africa had presidency of BRICS. 2024, we gave ourselves a break. My God, it is hectic. So 2024, we said, we're not going to do anything. We'll just support Russia in its activities. But 2025, we said, we're shifting gears. Even though the presidency of BRICS is sitting with Brazil for this year, however, BRICS works on consensus. So meaning that we are able to negotiate and execute an initiative at multilateral level. Right now, South Africa is therefore hosting officially as a BRICS WBA calendar activity, the 2025 Agriculture Trade and Investment Summit. Two components very important. That it is not an initiative designed or developed by the South African chapter. No, it was designed by one of our member entities, the African Investors Council, who then said, WBA, we would like to partner with you in rolling this particular summit out. That's the first important component. The second important component, which means when you are a member and you've got an initiative in any of the areas that we cooperate on. We don't cooperate on the whole everything. There are specific economic sectors that we cooperate on within ourselves as South Africa and all other member states. Food security will be one, agriculture and food security. Inclusive economy is the second. Under inclusive economy, of course, we talk different things, and it's exactly where our trade and investment working group sits. There's various others, infrastructure, and quite a couple. And the third area of cooperation is in the innovative development space. That's largely the digital economy. Number 4, it's creative industries as a sector itself, and tourism as a sector itself. And I think, healthcare as well. So there are 7 working groups, including environmental safety, which is really largely energy, energy and ecology. So these are the 7 areas with which we cooperate on. And of course, we've since gone ahead and established, various working groups. But the point is, we then said, we're going to focus on this one sector, being agriculture, because agriculture is a unifier of many other sectors. When you imagine agriculture, for a farmer, they need water. Water is infrastructure. When you look at somebody that does agro-processing as an example, so they take an apple and turn it into an apple juice. Again, that operation needs energy. Energy is infrastructure. Where you imagine the rural communities developing, and now suddenly people that have migrated from rural areas to urban areas that now know, God, hold on, there's real economic activity happening back at home. Everybody wants to be home. So suddenly people want to migrate back to their rural areas. And in those rural areas, because there's economic activity, people want to establish and start families. When they establish and start families, they want to build houses. More houses that are built in that specific area, the more you would find, a need for a school, a need for a hospital, a need for this. Again, that is infrastructure. Some of us sitting in this room in the ecology space, so we've got these brilliant technologies that would say, not worried about climate change and global warming. However, because I've developed a technology that can help farmers, to be able to produce differently, irrespective of the effects of climate change. We now know the rain patterns are different. It's all climate change, really. We now know that the rain levels themselves, rain is causing more damage, than any other time. The weather patterns themselves have shifted quite drastically. All that has an effect on food security. And somebody out there is sitting with technology. So this particular summit, we are of course saying, can we all get into one room? 5,000 people from BRICS plus countries and 30 plus African countries. Come into one room. Somebody's looking to trade, either buy or sell technology. Somebody's looking to either sell or buy, whether it be equipment, better product. Somebody there is looking for investment because they're saying, oh, okay, I am ready for scaling. Somebody's looking for investment, but the whole point is bring all these countries into for us to do just that, trade and invest. That we are trading because we need investment to do capacity building. We've got X number of farmers that are producing something, that we've coordinated the whole consolidation. We understand that China is looking for citrus products, and we know that in Limpopo, in this one province, in that province, in that province, in Ghana, in Swaziland, in Zimbabwe, a consolidation of that output will enable us to trade and supply that citrus that China is looking for. So I'm just now looking for, I've got a whole capacity development plan. It's been tried, it's been tested, it is... it's got a whole business plan to it, so it's a real commercial business. However, I'm looking for investment to execute, or I am looking for, seed funding in order for me to implement this capacity building program. these are the kinds of things we are looking for. And because of the summit, we've then said, okay, somebody out there is looking for something. So we said, let's prioritize the summit. Yes, we have big names. We are hoping our head of state will embrace, the summit itself. If it won't be him, it'll definitely be the deputy president. And there's other key stakeholders from different BRICS countries who are coming. But outside the big names of very important people, not only important because they're political principles, but important because they're also big business players. Your Mahindras, one would say Mahindra, and I'm like, yeah, Mahindra is very much in the agriculture equipment space. These are people that are coming to our summit. But we then said, okay, let's make sure that we can end the summit with at least $500 million worth of deals signed. And one would say, Lebogang, you've got a nerve. How do you go and do one event and force BRIC members to make sure that we end the summit with a combination of trade, investment, and capacity building deals and tech transfer, that combination yielding $500 million dollars? And I'd say, well, in 2023, under our presidency, we closed with the whole conference, we closed at $2.4 billion worth of deals. So what would be 500 million on just agriculture alone? It's very much doable. And hence, it's all hands on deck from all BRICS WBA member states and local members and regional offices. It's complete hand on deck. You will go everywhere. The summit is just somebody's talking about the summit. But what I'd like for you to know is two very crucial components as business people of this particular summit. The first component is much like we had a couple of years ago, people do Dragon Den, where you would have a panel of investors and people will come and pitch to that panel and either get yes, or somebody says, I'm interested, and they declare on the spot. We've brought in that component into the summit, and we call it the BRICS Pitch Power. And really, that we have partnered with a very big chamber. Their balance sheet is almost the size of our GDP as a country. So we've partnered with, excuse me, we've partnered with the BRICS Chamber of Commerce, 5-year cooperation with them. And in the context of the summit, what they're bringing in is seed funders, investors from all BRIC countries who are their members already to run this pitch power, which means all those businesses that would be selected from the BRICS WBA database, agriculture specifically, other technologies, ecology, infrastructure that speaks back to agriculture. We're going to select 18 from that portal, and that 18 businesses will come and pitch to this panel of investors. But because we want to make sure that at the end there are tangible results, we've got a clear target. Investors will be given a pitch of each of the 18 beforehand. So they have enough time to sit on it and really ponder and say, very interested in this one, very interested in that one, prior to the actual pitching, meaning that the entrepreneurs that will stand in front of that panel, it's entirely up to themselves whether they will close a deal or not, because their data, their information, their vision, their project will already have found expression with the investors. However, you walk into that room and you fail to pitch and sell yourself that moment, it becomes personal. Where you fail at that level, it will be a huge missed opportunity. So for those of you that have not, that are not members of WBA, but would like to in the summit, particularly in this particular stream, the BRICS Pitch Power, we would encourage you to go into, into the global website. It's www.bricswomen.com, and the BRICS Women contest. We called it a contest because we started it last year. Follow that and submit your projects. I think we've given time originally until the 3rd of February. However, the extension will be only up until the 10th of February. If you miss that time, well, it's tough. But then again, I'm not only talking to the agri people, I'm talking broadly, so even those in ecology, in infrastructure, in different spaces, can still submit their projects, because outside the summit itself, the work of the alliance continues insofar as finding partners for the respective projects across all economic sectors. So that's the one critical factor of the summit, because we want to make sure that yourselves as business people find expression in the activities of the alliance. Ours is moving the country and the continent's economic forward. It's a South Africa Inc. and an Africa Inc. conversation. We want to grow the country's economy. We want to grow the continent's economy. We want to contribute in increasing that 5% of the native business community when you grow, that 5% increases, it's a pie of 100%. So somebody's going to lose out. So either it'll be corporate, it'll be government in corporate South Africa, or it'll be the multinational. So our vision is for the native business percentage to increase. That can only happen if we find people like yourselves that are not only focusing on what South Africa looks like or what our domestic markets look like, but that understand there are immense opportunities, for trade, for investment, in various forms within these multilateral structures, including BRICS being one. Of course, we've got presidency of the G20 this year. How do you utilize that, to immense yourselves and entrench yourself? Because when you are immersing yourself and entrenching yourselves, you are actually helping the country with a couple of things. You cannot have sustainable jobs when you, as a native business community, as an example, do not have sustainable revenue. So when we help to sustain you, you are able to help the country both economically and socially. So you're able to create sustainable jobs as well. Hence, in my opening, I didn't touch on unemployment, because I am like, we are part of the problem. We can't look at a corporate South Africa whose government is only paying 20% and be looking at them to create jobs. That's not going to happen. But this 5% has got to increase. And while it increases, it's going to generate sustainable revenue across different markets. And while it's creating sustainable revenue, it is then able to create the jobs. Yeah. So it is our collective responsibility to no longer wait for our governments to do something. They've done their bit already. They've gotten us into these multilateral structures. They've signed bilateral agreements. It is now for us to take advantage of, these bilateral agreements that have already been signed, and say, how do we get into the market space then? Hence, you've got the BRICS Women Business Alliance, you've got the BRICS Business Council, you've got the various structures that are doing different things, but how do you utilize those structures to advance your business? I think, Nonkosi, I'm going to stop it here unless there's a specific component that you feel I need to speak to that I may not have touched. So we can, it's of course quite a lot of information that we're trying to compress into a 30-minute discussion. But we are here for as long as, people have questions, and where we need to amplify any aspect, we're happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Makeba. I saw some question around what opportunities are there on this platform. So I'm sure the person who asked that question has been able to at least hear that this is more to make sure that we share those opportunities at close range, and for you to be able to link up and mix with real decision makers and countries and people that have got those markets for the commodities that you want to sell, especially in the agricultural space, that is. So I just wanted to maybe open this opportunity for questions or comments for those that would like to ask. Probably Makeba, I think people would like to know, when is this happening? How do you become part of it? Just those basic questions. We still have time. And again, if you can just glance on our chat box, I will help you as well with some of the questions that they may have. Our members, I see a lot of them are appreciating this information and the sharing of what BRICS is really all about. Great discussion and all of that. Okay. Any question? Please, someone, if you want to ask a question, you can raise your electronic hand and comment, question, and we are ready to take that. Yes, we see so. Mr. Kitiza.
Just to follow up, while I'm new in the forum, I just wanted to find out, is it currently looking at the women, or is it open to everyone to table their story in terms of what Umar Keba was explaining on in terms of the women's forums on the BRICS?
Thank you, Madam Kitiga. Maybe let's take the second one, Makeba, and then you answer those. Mr. Koko?
Thank you so much, Nkosi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to Madam Chair. I have a question around a point she raised when in her opening of the speech. She mentioned that our GDP to debt ratio is quite obscure. So I just wanted to find out if there are any programs designed, or the BRICS is designing or proposed to try and rectify the issue of debt in general in South Africa, because we know that South Africans are generally in debt. We have one of the highest, I think, countries that are living off debt from our personal capacities to the country itself. So are there any programs proposed to try and fix that issue, or try to address that issue so that within this BRICS framework, when we say that we've got investors that are looking to, or domestic investors, we can have such domestic, we can build such domestic investors that will have enough financial power or financial strength to fund their own projects within the domestic framework. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Makeba.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start with Mr. Mkitiga. My leader, you would have noted that while it is called BRICS Women Business Alliance, we didn't sit a lot on A, women, and B, we didn't sit on the MSMEs. We said native business community. So short answer to you is no, BRICS Women Business Alliance is not representing only the women entrepreneurs. Of course, we do prioritize women entrepreneurs, absolutely, but ours is a native business community conversation. In fact, on this very call, the very gentleman that has invited us is leading one of our working groups. So Nonkosi himself is one of the chairpersons for the food security working group at joint working group level, meaning that he represents the country across all member states insofar as food security is concerned. That speaks to our inclusive approach. Our focus is on the native business community. It's very important that we understand that. It's that 5% that we want to increase. Mr. Koko, touched on a very, very important topic also, to say, while we say the debt to GDP ratio of the country is exceptionally high, and what is BRICS doing, are there any programs that we're doing to help change that? You're going to please allow me to touch a little bit on the geopolitics of things. When we speak of a GDP ratio at the level that we're at as a country, above 70%, if you imagine a mashonisa, and I'm looking for the basic way of answering you and explaining this whole scenario. So when you imagine, you look at a typical mashonisa, a loan shark. A loan shark says, look, I need to keep this client, as long as I possibly can. So they're charging high interest rates. So you find yourself having to, you work, you get your money, be it as a business or be it as an employee, you get your money, your salary, and of course you pay them, you keep going back and keep going back and keep going back. Now, at our country level, that debt to GDP ratio basically says exactly that. We are finding ourselves in a situation where severe percent of the country's economy is sitting in the hands of multinationals, number one. Number two, we're sitting with such high debt to GDP ratios, meaning that we're borrowing money from somebody as a country. Whether there's a relationship between the multinationals that are in the country and where we borrow money from, you can work it out yourselves, but bottom line is those that are borrowing you money, much like a mashonisa, are borrowing the country money. Mashonisa doesn't want to let go of you. They want to keep you as long as possible as a client, so they will charge high interest rates, so you keep going back, so you literally can't breathe. The country is in a similar situation, isn't it? That is why, as a collective Africa, when our leaders, our heads of states, go to these different platforms and they speak about the unfairness of the interest rates that are charged to African states that are seeking to borrow money, it's becoming impossible for a wealthy continent like ours to find itself, having to be as poor but wealthy, right? So the long and the short of it is, up until we get to a certain stage, I mean, he or she that owns the money controls what happens. And I really want to touch on a specific topic that relates to what you're asking. And I'm giving you a long answer because you've got to, I'd like for you to understand things in context. So in the 1800s, that time period, the patron of the Rothschild family wrote, he's got various quotes, but there's one specific quote that I want to speak to. His quote, he says, I cannot, who makes the rules or the laws of a nation, I care about supplying that nation with money. That's a quote he made in the 1800s. Today, that very family is owning at least 80% of the reserve banks in the world. So that was their vision. They've executed on that vision, generation to generation, leading to now. And the net result is they are owning 80% of the world's reserve banks, right? Now, they means that somebody calls the shots in terms of, do I want this country to develop or don't I want the country to develop? If I do want it to develop, then the regulatory framework of that particular country will enable and allow for monies to come into the country, or I don't want that country to really develop beyond a certain level, so I will control the flow of investment in and out of the country. Net result is, and we see comments about these sorts of things in social media spaces where people will say there was Conference X, and in Conference X, people made declarations, to invest so much billions or that much trillions into the country. However, we don't see it. These are the results of such. So it's not necessarily that if we have an investor in China right now that says we're ready to bring money, it does not necessarily mean that that investment will find straight channel, and it will be released, and therefore it lands where it needs to land. So as a result, while appreciating the geopolitics of things, even from a country's perspective, it is part of the reasons why we went the regional office route. So you've got to work the system and not allow the system to work you. So understanding that BRICS is pushing for multipolarity, understanding that at BRICS level, we are speaking win-win cooperation, understanding that some level of control in the country is, of course, still advocating for a unipolar world, because it's a very comfortable position it's a very comfortable position to be in for specific structures or specific individuals. We found ourselves as WBA having secured these many different investment partners that in certain instances, we'll take a multi-pronged approach. Where either we bring it direct when we are allowed to bring it direct, or when the regulatory framework allows for us to bring investment indirectly. If not, then we'll bring it via one of the African states. Bottom line, we will get investment into the country. Because we do, as native business people, my forefathers' bones are lying in KwaZulu-Natal. My generation, my children will want to go and visit the bones and go speak to my ancestors there. And while they're speaking to them, therefore it becomes important for me that with the responsibility we carry, and as native people and as native communities ourselves, that we fight if we need to fight, or we plead where we need to plead. We do what is necessary in order to ensure that development does indeed happen. So I'm giving you a very long a long answer, but it was very important for me that A, we do break it down, and that B, we are able to understand things in context, that not everything seems in the face of what was shared with us. Certain things we've got to learn and realize that, God, okay, so we now need to take a different approach in working a system such that at the end, we are able to do what needs to be done. And this is us as WBA working different kinds of systems to make sure that things do actually happen. And Mr. Korpo, I hope you've been sufficiently answered.
Thank you. More than sufficient.
Oh, that's good, Mr. Gogo. Truly appreciate Mageb. I think I want to take just 1 or 2 questions so that we close. Engineer
sorry, Nonkosi, if I may. I am seeing Madisha. He's got a little placard on his thing, so I'm not sure. I can't read from here.
Okay, I see Engineer Madela has got his hand raised. Which one is that?
Madisha has got a placard thing going on his chest. I'm not sure if he's trying to send us a message or...
Oh, no, I don't see that. I don't see that, Mageba. So maybe let him raise up the hand. Let's go to Mr.
Okay,
Madela.
so wait, I can read it. Can I read it, please? He says, yes. Restructure/change the name to create resonance and appropriateness.
Okay.
So I'll repeat that: restructure/change the name to create resonance and appropriateness. I'm not quite sure which name must be restructure.
Matisha has opened up. Let me allow him. I'm sorry, I'm not sure that's him or her. Madisha, please just raise your question on the issue. Okay. Let's go to...
I think it might be, Nonkosi, if I may please, I think it might be a language barrier issue. That is why he, resorted to rather writing that placard. And I'd love to respond. However, if he can hear me, let him, if he may please just indicate for us which name is he talking about. Is he talking to the name BRICS itself? Or what other name is he talking to? It's very important that we know what that is.
Okay, please, again, Madisha, we can even write down so that we can get that clarified. But let me move straight to Engineer Madela and after Mr. Mashinini. Those are going to be the 2 last ones, and then we nearing closure.
Good afternoon, Nonkosi, and good afternoon to Lebogang Zulu, and good afternoon to the participants here. My name is Zakela Madela. I'm trying to show the camera here. My name is Zakela Madela. I'm a business development manager in a company called Sisonke Vision. We're very much into agriculture and energy. Now, of course, you're going to have to just quickly forgive me. I'm going to be myself and not try to be professional. Quickly, I saw people closing a nuclear deal in this country between Russia and South Africa. It was going to be 3%, literally 3%, because the Russians were okay with 3%, and it was going to stimulate this economy. And some were saying it's 650 billion rand or R1 trillion. And Egypt and India took it. Their economies are blossoming. But in this country, they shut it down because people were not educated. But secondly, we are now back trying to come up with a modest nuclear deal, which is 2,500, around about 240 billion rand. We hear that the BRICS Bank has been completely hijacked. Agents, they've made sure that it would not be able to finance nuclear. When you talk to women get things done. So I'm reporting to you as a leader of the women business to say, go to that BRICS Bank, confirm if it is indeed that they've made sure that it will not be able to finance nuclear. Because it's a BRICS Bank, India is there, Russia is there, China is there, they are financing nuclear. This particular one here in South Africa, they've made sure that it will not be able to finance the nuclear deal. My question quickly, when I was working for the Russians, I found out that if you were to work with the Russians to enter the healthcare industry with medical equipment and medicine itself, this thing is so complicated in such a way that you literally cannot do business because the medical aid companies, they dictate. And that even translated to the public hospitals. So my question to you, that way, Tuguti, what can you do within BRICS to take advantage of the unemployment of the doctors, the people in agriculture, and in many, many sectors, to utilize the BRICS Plus to completely disrupt this market, open it up, as you said, that 75% of it is occupied by the multinationals who are not originally from here. How can we use the BRICS to completely disrupt it so that the people that are currently unemployed, they completely disrupt the market and make sure that everyone gets a piece of pie, because we cannot have a country of billionaires and a country of millionaires, which we currently have. That's my question. Thank you so much, Nkosi, and that way to Uleb.
Yeah, Matkeba, I'm going to allow you to just quickly bite on that one before you move to Mashinini.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very important. So my leader, I did say in my previous response that not everything is as it seems. Were you speaking in nuclear? Again, I want to go back to the policy issue, and I go back to the, you speak of I'll take you back to the quote I just shared with you, that where you have a scenario where somebody owns 80% of reserve banks in the world, ours included, just by the way, so we also know that the South African Reserve Bank is not owned by a government, and you have a 75% stake run by multinationals. Ordinarily, with government stake in corporate South Africa, they're dictating policy, and understand things in context. So one minute we want nuclear deals, and then the next minute we don't. It's geopolitics at play, my dear brother. I don't know. I cannot comment about the NDB being hijacked by Western countries. As far as I know, the New Development Bank, which is why President Rousseff's term has been extended to another 3 years. Ordinarily, you've got to appreciate that a member of BRICS does not necessarily automatically mean a member of the New Development Bank. Hence, it was moved from being called BRICS Bank to a New Development Bank. So there are countries who are members of the New Development Bank directly without being members of BRICS. So some think the change in name is it's just a change in name, but no, the change in name is precisely because there are members of the New Development Bank and they're members of BRICS. In some cases, yes, the members of BRICS countries are members of the NDB, but there are other countries. I know I can use Zimbabwe as a case in point. Zimbabwe has applied to be a member of the New Development Bank, not necessarily of BRICS. Different countries are looking for different things. So insofar as the nuclear deal and geopolitical spaces, I have deep opinion on that. I have, we can provide different strategies, but I feel uncomfortable giving that in this platform because A, it's a public platform, and B, it has been recorded. So if you would allow me, not to respond in this public platform, in sharing my views, my strategies, that we can take that offline. However, you touched on a very important point of how can we utilize unemployed workforce, be it doctors, be it agri-farmers, to disrupt, the status quo, being 20 corporate South Africa, being 20% government, 75% multinationals, and 5% native business community. Employees have no capacity to cause any disruption, quite frankly. Even ourselves as the native business communities, in our respective right, we do not have capacity to cause a disruption. If our own government is losing some state-owned assets when You know, we keep selling SOEs. The more we sell, the more corporate, the government stake in corporate South Africa reduces. And of course, somebody's got to absorb that percentage. So in this particular case, we don't have the muscle to absorb that stake, meaning that when an SOE is being sold, we as native business community do not have the financial capacity or capital to buy that SOE. Naturally, it falls into the hands of the multinationals. It is, again, part of the system. What we ought to be doing as business people, utilizing multilateral structures such as Bonalabo BRICS, is to forge the right kind of partnerships with these BRIC countries, with businesses in these BRIC countries, bigger businesses than ourselves, because matching or Lebogang, who runs a very small energy company with a Rosatom, it enables Lebogang to leverage the balance sheet of the Rosatom and leverage the thingy, their brand equity. But Lebogang sitting with Rosatom, it's important that we all understand, what do you sell? Because when you sell, I am small, I need you to enterprise develop me, that's what you will get, even a Rosatom or any other company in any of the BRICS countries. I'm using energy as an example because you spoke from an energy perspective. You will get enterprise development. However, when you sit in that room and you say, Rosatom, I have market X, Y, and Z that is quite happy to deal with you, doesn't have issues with sanctions. I can open that market. You know, I am here to open markets that you ordinarily don't have yourselves. However, on the back of that, I want to leverage your balance sheet and your brand equity to grow my own. It's a business conversation between the two. It's got nothing to do with this one is a listed, a state-owned company, and this one is a micro business. You know, so overall, I'm saying how we sell ourselves, how we brand ourselves does matter. I can tell you now with absolute certainty and a lot of pride, just this past December alone, you know, I won't mention project names, but I would say to you, we've managed to secure deals coming from Russia and India, combination of those two countries, $10 billion, I'm happy to mention that, but that is enabling, you know, ports in this country, but not only for this country, but that enables you know, movement of goods between this country and various African states. So these things are very much doable, but of course, while we are not an official structure that represents the political insecurity, we've got to be mindful of the movement in the geopolitical space and how it affects ourselves as business and how we are then trading. But I'm happy to take this conversation into its depth with you offline, my leader. I hope I think, wait, before I move, Nonkosi, please do allow me. Part of what we signed this past December was a partnership with an employment agency, a listed employment agency in Russia, because many a time our people are told that, look, which is case in point, what comes out of university and what industry requires, there's a complete disconnect. That's a case in point. That is fact. You can't run away from that fact, right? However, this agreement that we've signed with this employment agency that is listed in Russia, for that matter, is it that says Russia has got a labor demand issue across different sectors, and actually high-end, not just blue-collar, high-end project managers, health practitioners. So they've got a demand for 2.3 million, which means they're an employment agency. All that they do is they will have different customers. I mean, it's a listed company. You know, they have different customers. So a combined demand from their customers is 2.3 million people. So we signed a cooperation with them to say, while there are no employment opportunities in the country, in South Africa, in various parts of the continent, there is a country that is part of BRICS that has a demand for. So we are then creating opportunities for our unemployed graduates, and we did negotiate for blue collar as well, you know. That will then go and be employed in Russia. You do two things. Number one, they are earning income, but number two, they are developing skills that bridges this gap of multi-billion projects that we are told cannot be executed by South Africans because we don't have the skills, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the experience. You are now bridging it by taking them to a Russia and go and work in those multi-layered projects or multi-billion-dollar projects, if it's in construction, and gain the necessary experience 5, 10, 15 years from now. Yes, some would say, look, I'm happy in Russia. I'm staying here. I'm not going back home. I go home and visit, but I don't want to go work there. But not all of them would want to stay in Russia. Many of them would want to come back home, but they'll be coming back home with knowledge, skills, and better experience. What then becomes important is, what do we do as business people while they are earning all those skills? What are we doing to create the framework that enables them to come back to something that makes sense at home? And hence, we've got this trade and investment working group specifically that is very much project focused, that says who has what project that is bankable, that's scalable, that's either looking for an investment partner and a technical partner, and in what space is it? And of course, we're not doing concepts. We don't deal with concepts. I am pleading with you colleagues. It's going to be that it's either A, at feasibility stage, and B, or B, it's at bankability stage. That's very important that I highlight that, because the lady that's running that particular working group is exceptionally strict. So if you're going to waste your time and come up with your concepts, your ideas, she'll tell you, go work the ideas. When you're done working and you now really want to be in business, you come back. So you're going to put your skin in the game to get your feasibility. It's very important. So stay tuned. There will be a lot of communication on how we're going to execute on that opportunity for the 2.3 million job opportunities that are in Russia. We are talking to China also to try and create similar opportunities that we can get our people to, while they've got unemployment here, let them go and work in other countries, let them gain the necessary expertise so they can then come back home.
Thank you so much, Mageba. I would try to ensure that I link you up to Mr. Mandela. He obviously has worked for Rosatom, and there's a lot of experience that he brings with. He's a chemical engineer, and he's very active in this space. We extend this until our first, but I'm going to allow you, Mageba, just for literal 2 minutes to respond to Mr. Mashinini as he asked his question. Mr. Mashinini?
Leadership, good afternoon, especially Chairperson, Mr. Kaba, as well as Zulu as Chairperson, as proud ngaye, in fact, as a woman. So in mind, my name is Baile Mashinini, as one of the entrepreneurs in transport. So I just wanted, out of fascination of how the things are structured professionally and how you put them in context and in short and brief, and your expertise and experience. I just wanted to go into this one because I find it important so that in future we can pave a way or forge maybe ways in international community. So I said, Naman, let me address these questions with you, and then you'll give me maybe just your know-how as well as the chairperson, that how do we participate in the infrastructure development to assist in addressing the setbacks of our current times through EWPA? That is my first question. And then my second question, E.T., do you have a component of training and development in artificial intelligence that is competent to BRICS countries? Because I think we are looking at what China has come up to now, isn't it? Tusayo, Desire, and all these things. And then lastly, do you also offer financial education which is competent to the BRICS global market? Because if you used money a lot of times, you understand that it depreciates. And how do we grow it? Uguti ibe liquid, from liquid cash, ibe asset, improve GDP, a country that is currently challenged. Because tonight we are a developing country. We're not like Russia, which is a first world country. We understand. Nyabo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ndabazitha.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bob Mashinini, for the 3 questions of them. And I'm going to start with the last one on financial literacy. It's very easy for us, it's speak English words. It's very easy for us to speak financial literacy when we are again, I'm going to go back to the Mashonisa thing. Mashonisa wants you to literally leave off them. So I'll compare formula because let's bring it back to the country before we go to the people themselves. So if the country is borrowing money to spaces that are not necessarily, I'd say this is a personal Lebogang view based on the data that we've analyzed over the past 30 years. I'd say lo mashonisa osiboleka imali doesn't necessarily want the development to happen. Then I would say Lebogang qualify that. And I'd say, look, firstly, the debt to GDP ratio, speaks volume. Trade balances between South Africa and the country speaks volume. The economic landscape of the country speaks volume. The unemployment levels of the country speaks volume. And the last component, which is our fault as business people, is we have allowed ourselves to think small, act small, because we are called small, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. We are categorized as such. And I'm saying we are not. We are private sector ourselves that need to be hunting for better opportunities in order to go to where we want to go. Now, let's bring it back to financial literacy then. Where you have a muscle, you are able to teach me how to manage money. But right now, sinane problem yokuthi siyithola njani le mali singosomabhizinisi. Because many of us are looking at domestic spaces as markets. The biggest buyer of goods and services is our government, which means I will procure services or goods from you, but I have to, I've got various forms with which I'll procure the goods and the services. It's either tender route or solicited or unsolicited bids, whichever form. But bottom line is, because as much as we are 5% in the economy, the reality of our situation is in numbers from a population point of view, there's too many of us. The net result is that we are all competing, too many of us competing for this one market share, and that only comprise 20% of the economy. So already the dynamics are not balancing. So what we did was to say, look, we need developmental financing, the actual developmental financing. So again, in 2023, under our presidency, when we presented the annual report, I spoke about the regional offices. That's done. The second initiative we placed to the heads of states was to say, in 2016, under India's presidency, an MSME cooperation framework was signed by our heads of states. And that framework basically says, we, the heads of states, agree that we're going to pull the necessary resources, technology. We're going to support the growth of that particular business segment because we do believe it is the engine of growth for BRICS countries. However, between 2016 and 2023, the operationalization of that framework had not moved a distance. To that end, we requested endorsement from our heads of states during the summit itself that they allow us to work with the New Development Bank in establishing what we call the BRICS Women Advancement Fund that will be housed within the NDB itself. Now, that endorsement to kickstart the work we did achieve. Between 2023 and to date, we have met with all chairpersons of all member states, and we've agreed on three things. One was the composition of that framework, that we would like to work towards that fund being established to allow for A, developmental financing, and B, commercial financing, because NDB is about commercial financing, but C, very important, because you are now bringing in monies or funding that is pro-development, we would like for NDB then as the last framework to bring in the element of funding for execution of financial literacy. So we are hoping, we're working furiously behind the scenes. We are hoping, President Rousseff has invited us. Unfortunately, I can't join the delegation. Russia and China will be seeing her end of January. I've got but we're very comfortable with those leaders, to represent this particular conversation. But it is our intention, to make sure that either we end presidency or India's presidency or definitely China's presidency to actually have fully launched the fund itself. That's the last part of your question. Competence in AI, training and development. That was your second question, so I'm working them the other way around. Look, my dear brother, EWBA exists to B2B, if you like, to match people. At business to business level, at business to government level, because what I had said earlier about corporate South Africa being 20% government, while corporate Russia, corporate China, corporate India, a significant percentages of their government are in business, we found it necessary, as part of mobilizing for the growth of this 5% native business community to also facilitate B2Gs. So it'll be B from South Africa or from Africa's side, with Gs, government, businesses in these BRICS countries. So where I spoke about having closed with 2023 with those 11 partnerships signed, equating to $2.4 billion, that's precisely many of those deals. They'll take time before they're implemented because they're major projects. But it was not only B2B, it was actually B2G, but G representing the business side of things. So we're very particular about that particular space. And your first question was, how do we participate? How do we participate either in WBA and or for infrastructure, projects? Again, I did mention that under Inclusive Economy Working Group, joint working group of BRICS WBA, we have, as South Africa, established various streams, and one of those streams is trade and investment working group specifically, because we are again looking at people like yourselves that may very well have infrastructure projects that do align with the NDP, but even if they don't align with the NDP, the last 4 years we've built for ourselves, and not only for ourselves but to benefit businesses like yours, we've built an extensive network of critical partners, both that are state-owned, listed in different BRICS countries, but also with different financial institutions in these BRICS countries. So we have that network that we've established for ourselves, and of course, you don't go spend your money to establish a network and come back and just lay it out open. I'm certainly not a Mother Teresa. I'm an entrepreneur. So as an entrepreneur, it's, if we are going to do the work to link you, your project, your infrastructure project with, with any of the partners, be it for technical, be it for investment, be it for seed funding, what is the deal structure looking like? So it becomes individual to individual, because we're not a government-funded organization. We are government-appointed, but we are not government-funded. It's very important that I clear out that particular distinction. So it that we've done over the past 4 years has certainly been on the back of our own individual forward investments. So we've plugged in our own monies to go to these different countries and build these networks and build the South African chapter's brand equity within BRICS. So we've done that. Today when you get into China, you get into Russia, when you say BRICS WBA, South Africa, people get excited because the brand development has happened. We're now at brand equity level. So I think we are talking to each other at the right time, and which is why Nonkosi felt it necessary, to invite us to come speak to yourselves, colleagues. But again, I must reiterate, Bab Mashinini and colleagues, of course, we all want to make money. So let's understand that we're not going to keep each other busy by giving each other a concept or ideas. I do believe we're dealing with business people here. So when we are talking infrastructure projects or, trade projects or trade-driven projects, we will speak at something that is ready for market. We will speak at something that on infrastructure development itself, something that has gone past feasibility and or bankability. It's very important that I reiterate that part. I hope I sufficient question about machine.
Right.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Makeba. We've reached the end of our I appreciate, I know Madam Bo, the chairman, could have gone at length to explain more about BRICS and the opportunity. It's always a pleasure for me, being close to her, to hear and realize how many opportunities do we have. But I know that that will really take us to the next 2 hours. And that's why we've got this conference, which is to expose you to all the things that you really highlighted and the passion that she's oozing with. It's quite contagious and very amazing. And that's a person who is a change maker, who loves South Africa as a country and loves the continent, and would like to see us move to really benefit from this very big and important multilateral structure. Mageva, thank you so much. Always an honor to have you here. I hope you are still going to come, grace us further with more and more things, because I can tell you the level of interest is very high, and we want to start moving so that we can fulfill exactly what you are saying, not just concepts, but let us come up with well-packaged, proposals and see how to exploit this network. And then I announce and we close.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And again, thank you for inviting us. I saw on the chat platform, there were quite a lot of questions insofar as how do we reserve space to pitch our businesses with Summit? What's the cost? What's this, what's that? What we will do for you, Nonkosi, is we will give you a letter that outlines a submission of projects to Amandla Omnotho specific stakeholders, which will then guide all those that we couldn't, of course, answer today. So we'll make sure that you do get that letter effective tomorrow morning, so you can then share with the members. But otherwise, we are truly appreciative of this platform. We are
I don't know what happened to Mageva. I'm sure she's going to join back. Something happened on her side. We just let's give her some few seconds. She'll join quickly. And as we close, Mr. Magumbi, are you there? I see Dr. Marange is here.
Yes, I'm there. Nonkosi, how are you? Very. It was a very okay. It was a very nice a presentation by Mageba. Thank you so much for everything. And we are going to Germany this month. And upon coming back, we'll have confirmations of a lot of orders for what we need to export to that country. So we want to remember women are the ones that are mostly in agriculture and that lack opportunities to have direct markets. So through this Women in Business, led by Mageba, we are going to make a difference to the market access.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Marange. So, Magumbi, are you there? Okay, most likely he's not here.
He's having challenges with the network.
With the network,
he's a serious farmer. He's out there. So
I know.
So I'll relate everything to him.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, but just as there were announcements, colleagues. It's very interesting that there are big families of mainstream business in South Africa who are engaging Mr. Magumbi, and they are sending private helicopters to him, and they are training their own people hugely on exactly what we are talking about, the medicinal herbs, the turmeric. And that just tells you the stature of the gentleman who's going to be coming to do the masterclass with all of you. But I would not mention those families because those are very known and respected families, some of them from Stellenbosch. So, but I want to tell you that we have got the masterclass happening. I'm happy that there's 25 people who have paid, and we have to ask you, please, make sure that, I see you, Mageba, I'm going to give you a chance, that you pay because we're closing this Friday. The training is meant to move and flow as follows. We want to start in Limpopo. Portia, are you here? Marcelo, can you unmute?
Good evening, colleagues. Yes, I'm on.
Okay, Portia, where are you? Because I just want you to give people, there are people from Joburg who may not necessarily travel down to KwaZulu-Natal. From here, Joburg to Tzaneen, I think it's 444 or thereabout kilometers. It's almost close to 5 hours if I check my navigation here. Could you just tell us where are we going to have this training in Tzaneen and all of the details? I will tell you the date exactly, but just tell us because you are the one that's hosting us.
All right, the address will be Jaffrey Farm 511. It's on the R71 road, the rental rand in Greater Tzaneen. So I will send it to you, then you can share with everyone.
Thank you so much. Portia, again, like I said, this is dependent with you giving us 10 of your farmers as well as
they
other farmers. I want to see money coming.
Okay, you get money.
Yeah, and then other farmers from Gauteng who may feel that they need to go up to Limpopo. But we are going to have the training in Limpopo on the 22nd of February. Mr. Magumbi will come on the 21st. We do it on the 22nd. And then we'll discuss all the nitty-gritties, Portia, with you and your people. The trainings most likely are going to start in the morning where we will be going to the fields so that when the sun is up, we don't have to be scorched by the sun. We'd rather...
Oh, and please take notes. I'm sorry to interject. Yeah. It's very hot up there. So yes, you need to start.
That is correct. Thank you so much. So we want to rather do that thing of having to go out early in the morning, 7 o'clock, we are out in the field to learn about how to do preparations. And it's not going to be done in the whole hectare. It's going to be done on a certain square meterage so that thereafter you can do it yourself because you've learned. Then 3 hours after, we come back during the day to the class where we start now to go through the theoretical training and all of that. Let me tell you, this is not just training, it's training that has got an international contract attached to it. And I've said to people, you must come. You don't have to have money to buy the seats now. Mostly, we're going to start in August. Between now and August, come for the training. You'll probably by then have the money to buy for the seats, even if it's half at a hectare, because people who are serious to move with this particular sector. Then on the 23rd, it's going to be in Mpumalanga the day after. There's somebody who called me from Mpumalanga and said they are going to get 10 people or more so that you can qualify for us to come to Mpumalanga. Then the 25th is going to be KwaZulu-Natal in Jozini. We still have 1 day. If maybe there is somebody from the Eastern Cape with 10 or more people who would like to be trained. But we need to know before Friday so that we can plan the logistics. There's flights, bookings, meals to be booked, and all of those things in terms of direct sort of logistics, like your traveling plus your accommodation, that is on you. The 2.5 is just for training, taking care of Magumbe and Dr. Marangen, ourselves traveling, and taking care of his costs. But most importantly, that is going to be important for us to know how many people are we talking about in Limpopo, because we must know to cater for you. At least there will be some refreshments. Friday, we're closing, and we're no longer taking anybody because we want to make sure that we plan for this and plan properly. After this, we are going to start the property masterclass, where there is beautiful, processes that have already been laid out in terms of how that is going to go, including the people who want to be funded, who are going to be doing commercial, residential, and industrial. But I won't talk about it now. We'll talk about it then when we're starting off with the property class. I want to apologize for Madam Lebo. There are heavy storms, and she's really now struggling with connectivity, but she was done. She has asked me to sincerely pass her thanks and regards to you. Appreciated the opportunity to talk to you. So,
Nongos, can I please assist you there? Mpumalanga is becoming big. I think we might even have over 20 people there. They are going to get in touch with you so that they get the details. But Mpumalanga has responded very well at the moment. I would say so.
Thank you so much. So we can reserve a space for Mpumalanga then, as already I've mentioned, which is the 23rd. So the sooner they contact us and pay, the better, so that we know which we're dealing with. Yeah. Colleagues, thank you so much. Truly appreciate your time. We are on YouTube. Please go and like our page, Amandla Omnotho TV. You'll get everything that has been shared here on YouTube, including yesterday's Eswatini discussions. For those that listen to radio, because FM, we are there on this coming Wednesday at 8:20 in the morning. Thank you so much. Good evening.